welcome to this week's What's for Dinner video. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be showing you 3 different meals I made this past week. I don't always follow recipes exactly, but if you're interested, I've linked some similar recipes down below. So the first dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made a chicken pot pie biscuit casserole. So I'm just starting out with my potatoes. For my soups, I like to just use russet potatoes. They're cheaper and I feel like they just hold up better. So I'm going to chop up a good amount of potatoes into really tiny bite-sized pieces. I love a lot of potatoes in chicken pot pie. So next I'm going to do the same thing with my chicken. I am making this for 2 nights, so we will have leftovers. So I'm using a lot of chicken and potatoes. I'm just going to chop up the chicken into small pieces as well. So first I'm going to work on cooking the chicken. So to my pan I just had a little bit of oil and I'm dumping in all of my chicken. Just going to season with all of my favorite seasonings: salt, onion powder, Cajun seasoning, and some pepper. So I'm just going to cook the chicken up until it is all the way cooked through, and then I will set this aside. Definitely season the chicken with whatever seasonings you'd like. I like to keep my chicken pretty basic for a recipe like this, so I'm just going to add a little bit more Cajun seasoning and some dried parsley. So once the chicken was done, I got out my pot and now I'm going to create the base. So I'm just adding in half a stick of butter and I'm going to let this melt down. So next I'm going to add in some onion powder. You can definitely add real onion, but I was being extra lazy. So I'm just going to stir that in, and I'm also going to add in a spoonful of minced garlic. So next I'm going to add in a couple spoonfuls of flour and mix that together. This is just going to help be a thickener for the soup. So next I'm just going to add in 1 cup of water to help break up the kind of roux mixture. So next I'm going to add in all of my potatoes and then add the water on top. I always make the mistake of adding the water first and then the potatoes, and I end up having way too much like soup in liquid. So next I'm going to add in my bouillon powder. I believe I added 4 cups of water, so I'm going to do 4 teaspoons of the chicken bouillon powder. So I'm just going to stir that around, make sure everything is mixed together, and at this point I'm just going to let the potatoes boil and get nice and tender. So once the potatoes were kind of softened, I went ahead and added in my heavy whipping cream. This is just going to make the soup a little bit more creamy. So next I'm going to add in my frozen peas and carrots. I love a good amount of frozen peas and carrots in my chicken pot pie. So I'm just going to add that in and let those start cooking and thawing. Next, I'm going to add back my cooked chicken, so I'm just going to mix everything together and see how it's turning out. Next, I will add in a cornstarch slurry, and that is just to help thicken up the soup. A cornstarch slurry is just equal parts cornstarch and water, and it's just a great thickener for soups and sauces. So I'm just going to let the soup base keep cooking, cook down, and everything mingle together, and then I will transfer this. You can definitely add as much cornstarch slurry as you want. I love a nice thick base like this, so I wanted a good amount. So next I'm just going to spray my 13x9 baking dish, and I'm going to dump in the chicken pot pie mixture. So next I'm going to add on my biscuits. I only used 1 can of biscuits. If you want to use 2 to completely cover everything, you definitely can. I personally like pie crust more, but I just wanted to try this again. So then I just baked this in the oven at about 350 until the biscuits were nice and brown. This is how everything looked when it was done. Definitely so good, and it also is super good for leftovers. The next meal I'm going to be showing you is a quick and easy meal, but one that I really love: breakfast tacos and some hash browns. So I'm going to start off by cooking our hash browns. These are our favorite right now, the rounds. So I just finished the bag, and I'm just going to throw these in the oven, get them cooked while I cook everything else. So next I'm going to work on cooking up the bacon. I'm just going to cook 5 slices of bacon. That is plenty. So I'm just going to cook up the bacon until it is all the way cooked through. I feel like the smell of bacon cooking smells better at night than it does in the morning. So you do want to make sure the bacon is cooked all the way, just because this will be broken up and sprinkled on top of the tacos. So I'm just going to remove the bacon to a paper towel on a plate and let drain off the excess oil. So next I just cooked up these scrambled eggs. I wanted to make sure I cooked these last so they were nice and fresh. This is how everything looked when it was done. These were my husband's tacos. I just sprinkled on some cheddar cheese. I love mine with avocado and hot salsa. So the last dinner I'm going to show you, I made a rendition of SkinnyTaste Carne Asada fries, but with chicken. I obviously forgot to record a clip. So I'm just using some more of those russet potatoes. I'm just going to cut up my potatoes into thin French fry form. I wanted to make sure I cut them a little bit more thin rather than thick, just so they would get kind of crispy. This would definitely be a good thing to make if you had an air fryer. I don't have one, but I would definitely make this in an air fryer. So after I cut them, I'm going to wash them, dry them, and then I'm going to spread them on my baking sheet with some parchment paper. So I just put these in the oven at about 375 and cooked them until they were done, nice and crisp. So next I'm going to work on my chicken. I'm just going to butterfly a couple chicken breasts in half. You can definitely use carne asada if you like that. I personally don't. So I'm just going to use chicken, and I'm going to season with all of my favorite Mexican seasonings: taco seasoning, paprika, cumin, garlic salt. So next I'm going to make a little pico de gallo mixture. So I'm going to use part of a yellow onion. I'm going to just slice that up into really fine pieces, as small as I can get them, and then I'm going to do the same thing with my tomato. So lastly, I'm going to use my cilantro. I'm just going to roll it up and chop it up into tiny pieces. So for my quick pico de gallo, I'm just going to use a little bit of lime juice and some garlic salt to mix it all together, and this will be a nice fresh topping. So lastly, while the French fries are finishing up, I'm just going to cook up all of my chicken breasts. So once it was nice and brown on the one side, I went ahead and flipped it, and then I like to put a lid on top of it to help keep a lot of the moisture. So once the chicken was done, I just removed it to a cutting board to let it rest. That way I can chop it up. This is how everything looked when it was done. One of my favorite meals. I just added some guacamole and some sour cream. Thank you so much for watching this week's What's for Dinner video. Make sure you come back next week for another one.